So I've talked about the advantages of school feeding programs, girls' education, the particular importance of an incentive for families to send their girls to school. We know that these programs work. We know that we can provide the critical micronutrient support, supplementation to these children at critical stages of their life. We know that all works. But keep in mind again that agencies such as mine, the World Food Program, we may have at most an opportunity to target maybe 10% of the overall needs in programs such as this. We are one of the largest agencies in the system, the largest humanitarian and development agencies, but even then we're not able to source all the funds and the food that we need to do what I've explained everywhere where it's needed. So we have to pick and choose, we have to target, and we also have to have an exit strategy, because we'll not do this forever in one particular country or one particular region, one particular group of schools. We need to then move on to other schools that are equally needy and could use the same type of approach. So the exit strategy aspect is very important, and you have to have this type of discussion in terms of what the strategy will be before you even begin. So one of the key areas, again, is simply setting milestones for achievement. Well, how many children are there in the community? How many are in school now? What is the goal? What's the objective? We're trying to increase enrollment and then attendance also by, 50%, 60%? We want them to go through, up to 6th grade, primary school only? And this is important because in many areas, there is only a primary school. And to get to a secondary school, a high school, that is a whole nother discussion, in that the parents then have to send their child away to a boarding school, and it can be complicated. So you need to also have objectives that are set, that are reasonable, that you feel that you can, with this input, with this support, actually have a potential to achieve. You need to make sure as well that we're not just doing it ourselves. This is a major, major issue in so much of development today. And there are many, many horror stories over the years where we have great ideas in terms of what we want to do as an agency or as an NGO, as an outside partner, but if the government commitment isn't there, we may have success in what we're achieving, but the minute that we step back, it will not be sustained because the commitment wasn't there. And this goes the same for the community, the municipality, the town, the region. It's important that they equally see that educating their children is important. And many of us listening to this discussion today might think this is fairly obvious, but it's really not. As I've said earlier, there are many, many competing demands on the time of these children in the eyes of their parents and their families, their community. And education is not always high up on the list. People are living short-term and surviving. You need a technical support simply to build the school and make sure the schools are safe and that they are functioning, that the curriculum is there, as I mentioned. The program leadership, communication, that you have key leaders in the community, which could often be tribal chiefs or mayors, city councils, that see the importance and are willing to put their personal prestige, their political clout on the line to assure that these programs work. There's a role of the private sector. In many Asian countries, as I've said, in particular, we will form partnerships with the food processing industry that will help us develop these micronutrient fortified products. And we will secure and guarantee the market at the beginning because we're buying these from them. But eventually they will work with us to develop social marketing programs on that, to get these products out into the general community, to go beyond the school feeding program. Always very, very critical to have a plan before you go into it. We in WFP are very proud of the fact that we have phased out of 21 countries over the years, specifically in school feeding programs. One example is in Brazil, where back in the 60s, one of our first programs that we started was school feeding programs in Brazil. We phased out over the years, and now Brazil has a school feeding program based on that early design that the government fully manages and funds all on their own. This is exactly what we're trying to achieve. We step back after we get this type of thing started, and then the government and the community sees it to be sufficiently important that they will put their scarce resources into the program themselves. there are many examples where this doesn't always work well. A couple of years ago, actually many years ago, I was posted in Namibia, what was then Southwest Africa. And we were looking at designing a school feeding program of the type that I've been explaining as we were working with the new, what was to be then the new government of the independent country of Namibia as it was transitioning out of the previous apartheid government or colonial government that was run by the South Africans. And I was in a rural area, what was called a Bantustan, a black homeland back then. We were visiting a school and talking to the community about their needs and their interests and the importance of education, and that was just the early days of exploring a school feeding option as WFP was just coming into the country. And that night, I spent the night in the village, and that night I was woken up and I came out. There's all this bright light going outside in the dark, and the school had just caught fire. And again, you've got a picture. This is a small village. People are living very modestly in small shacks and huts. And then there was this concrete building with a nice roof and desks and chairs and blackboards and all those kinds of things that you'd expect in a school. And so this is a nice school and a nice building. And I'm standing there watching this school burn to the ground because no one was lifting a hand. And it was a major learning moment for me and for many of my staff who I was there with, because we were just waiting for the volunteer fire brigade or someone just to spontaneously jump in and start putting out the fire. But it wasn't happening. People were just standing watching the building burn. And later it was explained to me that that building was built by the apartheid government. That was built by the government somewhere, and people did not feel the ownership. It was a government school. Government, bad in those days. It was a colonial apartheid government that had suppressed them in their view, and they didn't feel that it was of them. And then my question was, yes, but your children go to school there. You know very well in this very remote area of the country, it will be years before anyone can rebuild a school. And what about the long-term view? It may have been built by someone else, but it's yours now. It wasn't seen that way at all. They were like, well, we'll just manage something, but that's not ours. We don't take ownership. This is really a key concern that we always have, that communities are equally involved and equally committed to the education of their children.